one that is like right under the tongue, that would be the sublingual, and this larger one would be the submandibular. Okay, would be the submandibular. All of this is labeled here. Okay, so that's the parotid gland, that's the sublingual, and that's the submandibular gland. Now, who can tell me what is the role of salivary amylase?
Retain carbs in the mouth.
Carbohydrates. Very good. Remember, the first type of nutrients that get digested in the digestive system is carbohydrates due to salivary amylase, which mostly comes from the parotid gland. Okay. Let's now talk about the esophagus. So as we said, the esophagus is a muscular duct, right? It has an upper sphincter and it has a lower esophageal sphincter. It passes through a muscle. Do you guys remember what's the muscle that the esophagus passes through?
Diaphragm.
Diaphragm. Okay, so what's the function of the lower esophageal sphincter?
To empty it to the stomach.
It prevents
gastric acid
from flowing back to the esophagus, right? So it prevents the reflux of fat, right? That's what the lower esophageal sphincter does. So here you can see the whole esophagus in the cadaver, in this light green tube, that would be the esophagus, right? In the mouth. Okay, so that's the esophagus in the cadaver, this is the esophagus in. Okay. All right. So now, what's the difference between the parietal and the visceral peritoneum? The parietal peritoneum lines what? This is a sagittal section, right, of the body. So what is the parietal peritoneum lining? What's the meaning of the word parietal? It means wall. So it lines the inside, like the inside of the muscles of the abdominal cavity, right? In the posterior part of the abdominal cavity. Whereas the visceral peritoneum covers the coils of large intestine, small intestine, and the digestive organs. Okay, visceral means organs. Okay, so in between these two membranes, right, in this space is where we have the peritoneal cavity. And remember that when there is accumulation in that peritoneal cavity, the patient will have an enlarged belly and a condition called ascites. Could you guys give me two possible causes of ascites? Hypoproteinemia, portal hypertension. Very good. Okay, cardiac insufficiency could count as well. Okay, very good. So this organ is the stomach. This is the cardia. The cardia is where the esophagus connects. Right, so the esophagus is connected to the cardia. Does anybody remember what this region of the stomach is called?
Fundus.
That's the fundus. Very good. And most of the stomach?
Body.
That's the body. Right. And then we have this narrow portion.
Pyloric region?
That's the pyloric region, right? In the pyloric region, inside, we have a sphincter. Okay, well, we will talk about it in a minute. All right. So remember, the stomach has two borders, right? So if I show you here the stomach, right? This, actually, let me show it to you like this. Okay, so this is how it goes, how it is oriented. So this is called the lesser curvature. There is a membrane that connects the lesser curvature to, do you guys remember which organ? Goes like here, the liver, right? So the lesser curvature is where the lesser omentum is connected and that attaches to the liver. In other words, here's the liver and here's the lesser curvature. There is a membrane of connective tissue that connects the two so that they are held in place. Okay? And then if you remember when we dissected the cat, there is a connective tissue that attaches to the greater curvature that is called the greater omentum or fatty apron. Okay, greater omentum or fatty apron. So this is the greater curvature, and here you can see a picture of the greater omentum in a cadaver. That means this is the stomach, and this is the greater curvature. Does this make sense? So let's say, for example, that I ask you in the exam, identify this edge, right, this area, and what connects here, what would you say?
Greater curvature.
The greater omentum. And
Oops.
if I ask you to identify this edge, The lesser omentum, and the lesser omentum connects the stomach to the liver. Good. Okay. So let's say that I ask you, I can ask you to identify this region, right, which is this lower region of the stomach. Why is it important clinically? Because it is a common site of cancer, right? Let's say if I ask you to give me two possible sites or common sites of cancer in the digestive system, besides or another one, besides the antrum, what would you say?
Sigmoid.
The sigmoid colon. Okay. So here we have the pyloric sphincter, right? Remember, a sphincter is like a ring of muscle. What's the function of the pyloric sphincter? Correct. It regulates passage of food into the water. Very good. Okay. So now, what we're looking at, so when you look at the inside of the stomach, the lining of the stomach is called the rugae. If I take a little piece of that rugae, or mucosa, which is the same, and I look at it under the microscope, I find different types of cells, right? At the very top of a gastric gland, we have cells that produce mucus. They're called mucus cells, and they produce mucus. What is the reason why we need to have a lot of mucus in the lining of the stomach?
Acid.
Because we want the stomach itself to be protected from its own acid. Good. Okay. Then, parietal cells, right? Parietal cells secrete hydrochloric acid. What is the importance of hydrochloric acid? Why do we need hydrochloric acid in the stomach? To digest lipids and proteins. So, for example, let's say you eat a piece of steak, right? After a few hours of being in contact with hydrochloric acid, it's going to break into small pieces. Okay, so that's a very potent acid. My dog, oh my God, I don't know how she ended up like eating a piece of aluminum foil. And I was like, so, if she was scheduled for surgery. So, she was scheduled for surgery because we wanted for her to be neutered. And the day of the surgery, I started to walk her, and then she started throwing up something silver. I was like, what is this? And so I took her to the vet, and the vet says, yeah, has she been in contact with aluminum foil? Apparently, like during Thanksgiving, there was like so much food and stuff, and so she ate a little piece of it. So that's how I know how hydrochloric acid, how potent it is, because like that aluminum was like liquid. It was just silver. Okay, so hydrochloric acid is very potent. All right. So going back to what I was saying, hydrochloric acid. So it helps to digest proteins. Number 2, intrinsic factor. What is the importance of intrinsic factor? It helps with absorption of vitamin B12. Very good. Okay, and ghrelin, what is the function of ghrelin?
Hunger.
It makes us hungry, right? Very good. Okay. Then besides the parietal cells, so I can ask you, for example, to list a couple of cells found in gastric glands, right? So one of them will be parietal cells that produce hydrochloric acid, intrinsic factor, the ghrelin. You could also give an example, another example would be Schiff cells. And Schiff cells secrete pepsinogen. Based on the name of pepsinogen, what type of nutrients will be digested by pepsinogen? Proteins. Good. Okay. And gastrocolic is for digestion of fats. Okay. Then we also have other cells called G cells that will stimulate parietal cells to produce even more hydrochloric acid. Okay? And they also secrete substances that will signal other molecules, other components of the digestive system to do the job. Okay. Do you guys have any questions? All right. So let's talk about the small intestine. How many regions are there in the small intestine?
3.
3. What's the first one? The duodenum. Second, jejunum, and ileum. Very good. Those are the 3 regions. So what we are looking at, this is the inside of the small intestine. Okay, so this is like if I take the small intestine and I look at it inside. Okay, so inside of the small intestine we have structures called villi. So this is a villus. Okay, this is a villus, and the villi in the core has blood capillaries and has lymphatics. Remember that we learned that lymphatics in a villus are called lacteals. Can you guys tell me what's the difference between the function of a lacteal and the function of a blood capillary in a villus? What's the function of lacteals?
Absorb lipids.
Absorption of lipids. Very good. Whereas the blood capillaries absorb the other two types of nutrients, which are proteins and carbohydrates, right? Remember that what we said, that lymph is kind of fatty because the lacteal, which is part of the lymphatic system, absorbs fats, right? And that fat will be mixed with lymph, all right? Okay. So in this model, the lacteal is this yellow structure, okay? And the function is absorption of lipids, all right? So here it is. That's your lacteal. It's always in the core of the villi, and remember, villi are microscopic structures in the intestine. Okay. Now let's talk about the first portion of the small intestine, the duodenum. So let's say that I ask you list the 3 types of substances that arrive at the duodenum. What would you say? So here we have, right, let me just organize this, put it together. So we have here, this is the stomach, and the stomach is connected to the first portion of small intestine, right, which is the duodenum. I'm gonna show you the duodenum from the back so that you can see that it's like a C-shaped structure, okay? So then this is the duodenum. So let's say that I ask you, list the 3 type of substances that arrive at the duodenum. What would they be?
Chyme.
Number 1, there will be chyme that comes from the stomach, right? Very acidic fluid that arrives right here, okay? And there are 2 other substances that will arrive in the back of the duodenum that will arrive, well, one of them will arrive from the back of the duodenum, and that is bile. And where is bile coming from?
Gallbladder.
From the gallbladder and the liver itself, right? So that's where bile comes from. And there is also a second type of secretion from this organ that is located behind the stomach. Which one? The pancreas, right? So this white line that you guys see right here, that's a pancreatic duct. Okay, so what's in pancreatic juice? Why is pancreatic juice important? Let me give you some hints. Pancreatic juice is rich in zymogens. What is a zymogen?
Inactive
It's an
enzyme.
inactive enzyme, right? And so once it reaches the duodenum, it will become activated because of the change in the pH. Okay, and so what type of molecules can be digested by pancreatic enzymes? Everything, okay? Pancreatic juice is like a potent cocktail of enzymes. It can digest carbohydrates, lipids, proteins. So that means that pancreatic juice contains amylases to digest what type of nutrients? Carbohydrates. It has lipases to digest lipids, and it has peptidases to digest proteins. Okay? So it's a very potent mixture of enzymes. Pancreatitis, what is pancreatitis?
Inflammation of pancreas.
Inflammation of the pancreas could be a very serious medical condition because the enzymes of the pancreas can literally digest the organ. That's why they are released as zymogens. That's why they are inactive when they are inside the pancreas. And they only get activated when they get to the duodenum. When a patient has pancreatitis, the inflammation changes the pH of the organ itself and can cause release of those enzymes in the organ, in the pancreas itself, and can destroy it. Okay, because those are potent digestive enzymes. Does this make sense? Okay, that's why pancreatitis is so dangerous. Okay, so pancreatic juice contains digestive enzymes. Those will arrive here in the major duodenal papilla of the duodenum. And then we have bile that comes from the liver and from the gallbladder and arrive at the same place, right? At the major duodenal papilla. Okay. So those are the three types of secretions. The duodenum itself secretes cholecystokinin and secretin. What's the function of secretin? Secretin tells the pancreas and the gallbladder that it's time to release their secretions. Okay? And what is the function of cholecystokinin? Let's break it into pieces. What is kinesis? It makes the gallbladder contract. It causes the gallbladder contract. Cholecysto means, colon means gallbladder, cysto means cystic duct, which is the little ducts connected to the gallbladder, and kinesis means movement. Okay, so it causes the gallbladder to contract. So let's say, for example, that you have lots of fat here in the duodenum. Cholecystokinin causes contraction of the gallbladder so that bile is released to help emulsify fats. Does that make sense? Alright? Okay. So, let's now look at the model. Is this model that we have here, right? So this is the duodenum. This C-shaped structure, okay? This is the duodenum. So what arrives here? What will arrive right here? Chyme from the stomach. And what will arrive here in this pink area that is the major duodenal papilla? Pancreatic juice and bile. Perfect. That's it. Alright, so that's all you need to know here. I can either ask you to identify the duodenum in the model or in this picture, right? So this C-shaped structure will be the duodenum. Okay? Major duodenal papilla, as we said, it receives bile and it receives pancreatic juice. Okay. Then we have the second region of the small intestine. Everything I have in my hand is the duodenum. What's the function of the the jejunum? What's the function of the jejunum? To digest most nutrients and to absorb most nutrients. Okay, so it is the most important region of the small intestine. It's the main site of chemical digestion and absorption. So this is now when the jejunum is more vascularized, meaning that it has more blood vessels. So when you open up the abdominal cavity, you will see that the jejunum looks more red than anything else because it makes sense. There's a lot of capillaries helping with the absorption of nutrients. Okay, so this would be the jejunum. Important because it's the most common site of absorption of nutrients. And the next question that I'm going to ask you is, what is this this band of connective tissue that, as we said, is connected to the greater curvature? That is the greater omentum, right? So this yellow thing that you see here is the same as this, right? So that would be the greater omentum. Okay? So in this model, the greater omentum is only represented by just like a portion of it, but remember that this is like a whole fatty apron, right, that you could lift. Okay, but in the model it's only represented as half. Okay. And then we have the third portion of the small intestine. What is it called? The ileum. What's the function of the ileum? What makes the ileum different than the other portions of the small intestine? The bile acid gets absorbed, very good, and the other reason why it is important is because it's a site of immune defense. So there are Peyer's patches, okay, so it's an important area for immune defense. Now, there is a valve that is called the ileocecal valve that regulates how much food passes from the last portion of the small intestine into the large intestine. Okay? So in other words, by the time the food has passed through the duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum, it's now fully digested, right? And then it will go into the large intestine. Okay. Let's move on to the large intestine. Let's say I'm just going to ask you to identify structures here. So the very beginning of the large intestine is called the cecum, right? It receives the secretions from the ileum. What is this part of the large intestine called going up?
Ascending.
Ascending,
Descending colon,
transverse,
transverse colon,
descending,
descending colon. How about this S-shaped region?
sigmoid,
Sigmoid colon. Why is it clinically important?
colon cancer,
Site of cancer. This region that is straight
rectum,
is the rectum, and then at the end you have the anus. Now, do we have villi in the large intestine? Yes or no? No. What's the main function of the large intestine?
Water
reabsorption,
reabsorption.
To remove water, right? We want to solidify feces. And so what you see instead is a ton of goblet cells. Okay? Tons of goblet cells. The large intestine is not about digestion. The digestion is already done, right? Mostly in the jejunum, the small intestine. So we absorb water, we absorb electrolytes, but the large intestine is important because it has some bacteria that are flora. What's their function? What is the vitamin that we need, that those bacteria help us synthesizing? Vitamin K. And why is vitamin K important?
blood clot,
For blood clotting. Who needs to receive vitamin K?
newborns,
New babies at birth because they don't have the bacteria, right, that colonizes the large intestine. Okay, so those are like the main functions of the large intestine. So let's say that I ask you to identify in the model. Let's practice once again. So what is this? The cecum. How about this part?
ascending,
Ascending colon.
transverse,
Transverse colon.
descending,
Descending colon.
sigmoid,
Sigmoid colon. Good. And here we have also,
appendix,
this is the appendix. Very good. Okay, so that's the cecum, that's the appendix, that's the ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, and sigmoid. Okay, common site of cancer. These are the mesenteries. Okay, this white band of connective tissue are the mesenteries through which the mesenteric arteries pass through. Remember, there's superior and inferior mesenteries. So they supply the large intestine. Okay. Here we have the rectum. The rectum is the area where feces will be temporarily stored, right, before a bowel movement. And then the anus. Okay, and those are like all the structures that we need to be familiar with. That's a mesocolon or mesentery, whichever way you want. Any questions? Yes, good. All right, we're gonna move on to the pancreas. So here we have the pancreatic duct. In the model, the pancreatic duct would be this white duct. So, pancreatic duct carries pancreatic juice. What are the types of enzymes that can be found in pancreatic juice? What type of nutrients can be digested by pancreatic juice?
all,
All of them. Because it contains amylases to digest carbohydrates, lipases, proteases, etc. Okay? Alright, so the pancreatic juice will be drained into this opening in the duodenum, that as we said is called the major duodenal papilla. Okay, the major duodenal papilla, that as we said is this small duct. You have to look carefully at this little pink duct right here, right? Which remember receives both bile and pancreatic juice. Okay. The pancreatic juice, besides those enzymes that are zymogens, it also secretes bicarbonate. What is the reason why pancreatic juice would be rich in bicarbonate? What do you think?
neutralize,
To neutralize acid. It's mostly like to maintain those zymogens inactive, right? To maintain the enzymes inactive. So that bicarbonate is important here. Okay, that bicarbonate is very, very important here to prevent the zymogen from being activated. Okay, and it also will buffer some of the acid, because remember that chyme, which is very acidic, will be found in the duodenum. Okay, so that's the pancreas. The pancreas in a cadaver, that would be like this elongated organ. right? This is a pancreas, and here's the pancreatic duct. All right. Let's now talk about the liver. So your liver is this organ located in the right hypochondriac region. How many lobes are found in the liver?
4.
4. So we have a large one on the right, a smaller one on the left, and 2 smaller lobes on the inferior surface, the caudate lobe and the quadrate lobe. So in this, I'm going to show you the picture here. So that would be the right lobe of the liver. Now this green line that you guys see here, which corresponds to this, would be a ligament called the falciform ligament. That is a ligament that attaches the liver to the diaphragm. Okay? So that's a function of the falciform ligament. And this is the left lobe of it. Alright. Okay. This is the inferior view. Okay, so this is like if we're looking at this model from below. Remember that this is the inferior vena cava, right? This blue structure. So this lobe that is next to the inferior vena cava is called the caudate lobe of the liver. And what is this structure?
Gallbladder.
Has a gallbladder. You see that the lobe that is next to the gallbladder is kind of like square. So that's called the quadrate lobe of the liver. Okay? This is the quadrate lobe of the liver, and this is the caudate. Okay, so those are the 4 lobes of the liver. Alright. Now, as we know, one of the functions of the liver is to produce bile, right? What other functions of the liver do you guys remember?
Filters blood.
It filters blood. It detoxifies blood. What else? It can store a molecule that is a polymer of what? Remember insulin, yes, Maddox? Glycogen, right? It can convert glucose into glycogen, right? Do you guys remember what that process is called? Glycogenesis. Or it can do the opposite. It can take glycogen and break it down, right? Separate it into glucose molecules, and that's glycogenolysis, right? And it can also produce glucose from proteins in lipids. What's that process called?
Gluconeogenesis.
Gluconeogenesis. Very good. Okay, so that's part of what it can do. In other words, it can handle sugars in different ways. It can also store proteins and produce proteins. It can also store fats. We have to be careful with our diet because it's very good at storing fats, and you can end up with a fatty liver, right? So in other words, as it analyzes blood, it can remove some of the nutrients and store them, or it can add nutrients to blood. Okay? What else is important about the liver? What hormones are produced in the liver? There is one that is secreted when the liver detects hypoxia.
Erythropoietin.
Erythropoietin, or EPO. What is the function of erythropoietin? To help us produce more red blood cells, right? What's the target of erythropoietin?
Bone
Marrow. Good. And there is another hormone that eventually becomes angiotensin 2. Angiotensinogen, right? That's also produced in the liver. So you can see the liver has many functions. Okay, so one of the functions is to produce bile. Bile is collected by these 2 hepatic ducts, okay? And then bile will go into this duct. What is the name of this duct that is directly connected to the gallbladder? Cystic duct. Very good, okay? And what happens in the gallbladder? What's the main function of the gallbladder? It stores bile and concentrates bile. It does not produce bile. Okay? Bile is produced by the liver, goes into hepatic duct, goes to the cystic duct, right? And then it goes into the gallbladder. And it will be stored there temporarily until it receives a signal from a hormone that we spoke about a minute ago. Which one? Cholecystokinin. So when cholecystokinin signals the gallbladder, it constricts and it sends the bile from the cystic duct towards the major duodenal papilla of the duodenum. Okay. Okay, so that's a common bile duct, right? That takes the bile to the duodenum. What's the function of the portal vein? It takes blood to the liver, and blood from the portal vein, where is it coming from? No. We said that the liver analyzes blood, right? And processes blood and detoxifies blood, but where is that blood coming from? The intestine. It's coming from the intestine. Remember that there was something called the enterohepatic circulation? What is entero? What is enteric? Intestine, right? So the enterohepatic circulation means the blood vessels that take blood from the intestine to the liver. The portal vein is part of that enterohepatic circulation. Okay? So if I ask you to identify the portal vein and I ask you where is the blood coming from, that blood is coming from the small intestine. Okay, don't forget that, that's important. Okay. What is this? Blood vessel is the largest vein below the diaphragm.
Inferior.
Inferior vena cava. Yes. Okay, it goes to the right atrium. Don't forget that. Okay. So now, here we are looking at the liver lobule. It's the basic microscopic structure of the liver. So what are the main cells? If I ask you what are the main cells that you find in the liver lobule, what would you say? Hepatocytes. Very good. What's the function of hepatocytes? Basically all the functions that you listed a minute ago. It detoxifies the blood, glycogenolysis, gluconeogenesis, glycogenesis. It produces proteins, stores fats. It helps with production of hormones. So it's a very big, these are very, very busy cells. And so what you see is that they are on either side of these river-like structures that are called hepatic sinusoids. Where is the blood from the hepatic sinusoids coming from? The portal vein. And where is the blood from the portal vein coming from? The small intestine. Exactly. So it analyzes the blood, and as the blood gets analyzed, that's when the hepatocytes can do the job. What is the main vein that is found in the center of a liver lobule? Central vein, because it's in the center, right? It's in the middle of the liver lobule. Okay, and then you have also in the portal triad, if I ask you, for example, list the three structures of a portal triad. One is a branch of the bile duct. We have a branch of the portal vein, and we have a branch of the hepatic artery. Okay, those are the three components of the portal triad that are found in the corners of the liver lobule. Okay, so as you can see, here are if I ask you, give examples of functions of the liver or functions of hepatocytes, is exactly what you guys mentioned a minute ago. Detoxification, storage of nutrients, all these metabolic functions, gluconeogenesis, glycogenesis, glycogenolysis, production of bile, production of erythropoietin or angiotensinogen, right? Those are the hormones produced by the liver. Okay. Now we have the gallbladder. Function, store, concentrates bile. It doesn't produce bile, right? Bile, remember, is produced by hepatocytes. So what happens with bile? Again, bile is stored here and concentrated with cholecystokinin that comes from the small intestine, from the small intestine, from the duodenum, signals contraction. Bile will pass through the cystic duct, through the common bile duct, and it enters the major duodenal papilla. Right? That's when the food here is very fatty, right? When the kind is very fatty. Okay. So here we have the bladder, cystic duct. This Y-shaped structure is the hepatic duct. This is the common bile duct that carries all the bile from both the gallbladder and the liver. The major duodenal papilla. This is the duodenum. are hepatic ducts, the cystic duct. The cystic duct is always the one connected to the gallbladder. This is the gallbladder, that's the common bile duct, and what is this here? The major vein of the filling, right? Okay. So let's say that I ask you to define the following terms. What is a zymogen? An inactive enzyme. What organ produces zymogens? The pancreas. Good. What is glycogenesis? Synthesis of glycogen. What is gluconeogenesis?
Synthesis of
Synthesis
glucose
of
of
glucose from
proteins and
lipids
lipids.
and fats, or lipids and proteins. How about glycogenolysis?
The breaking of glycogen.
Breaking down glycogen. What is amylase?
Enzyme to
An
To
enzyme to
digest.
digest carbohydrates. And what is pepsin?
enzyme.
An enzyme to digest proteins. Good. Okay.
Enzyme.
Any questions? Okay. Let's now move on to nutrition. Okay, so what are the possible questions here? What is a calorie? That could be a question. So a calorie is the amount of energy to increase the temperature of 1 gram of water by 1 degree. And in physiological terms, is the ability to produce physiological work. Okay, so we eat because we need calories to produce physiological work. Okay, so you can either define it by the physical definition that increases the water, but more important for me is that you know that it's the capacity to do biological work. Okay, and the type of nutrient that yields the highest amount of calories is lipids. Okay? About 9 kilocalories, whereas carbohydrates and proteins only 4. Okay. We already talked about ghrelin and peptide YY, but out of all this list, I want you to remember ghrelin, that increases appetite. I want you to remember leptin, that decreases appetite. Okay, so just stick to those two. Okay, for your exam. All right. What is the body mass index? Is a parameter that is used to classify individuals as having normal weight, or being obese, or very obese. Just know that 20 to 25 is the value that is optimal. There's a lot of debate whether this is a good indication of weight. So, but it still is used, still is in your book. Just know that body mass index is an index that helps you to classify an individual as being overweight or normal. Okay, so what are the 4 main macronutrients? Carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, okay, and then we have water as well. Okay, what are the micronutrients that we only need in small quantities?
Vitamins.
Vitamins and minerals. Good. Okay. So we have some essential nutrients, which are multivitamins, minerals. What are examples of minerals that we need in our diet?
Iron.
Calcium,
Calcium, iodine. What else?
magnesium,
Magnesium, potassium, sodium. Yes, those are important minerals, right? We also have some essential amino acids. We have fatty acids, omega-3s and omega-6. Which one would you find in fish? Omega-3s. Good. Okay. So, this, what can I ask you about this? Number 1, what is the type of nutrient that gets digested in the mouth?
Carbohydrates.
Carbohydrates. What's the main function of the stomach? What are the 2 main types of nutrients digested in the stomach?
proteins,
Proteins and
fat,
lipids. Good. And in the small intestine, what gets digested in the small intestine? Everything. Why?
Because pancreatic
Because
juice.
it receives pancreatic juice, right? Which can digest everything. And also because the small intestine also has brush border enzymes, like right in the microvilli of the small intestine, right here in between those villi, you also have enzymes that can digest different types of nutrients. Okay? What else do I need you to know about this? That carbohydrates and proteins, meaning monosaccharides and amino acids, get absorbed into blood capillaries, whereas lipids go to lacteals, right? Which is basically the same as we discussed a few minutes ago. Okay. Let's say that I ask you, what are 3 reasons why we need to eat carbohydrates? What's the nutritional value of carbohydrates? Energy, number 1, right? We need glucose, especially what organ needs lots of glucose?
Brain.
Brain. What else do we need carbohydrates?
Forming glycoproteins, glycolipids.
Forming glycoproteins, glycolipids. What else? That would be lipids. What else? Yes, the ribose is part of the DNA, right? Yes, it would be an element of nucleic acids. Yes, very good. Okay, the main thing is that it gives you energy, right? So that is one main reason why we need carbohydrates. Okay. Which monosaccharides are co-transported with sodium? Glucose. Okay, galactose as well, but always remember glucose. Why is that important? Why is that concept important to remember? Remember when we talked about Gatorade that was kind of sweet and salty? What happens? It gets absorbed. Glucose and sodium get absorbed together because they're co-transported. And so that helps you to rehydrate, right? An infant, for example, that is dehydrated. Okay. So monosaccharides are absorbed with what type of capillaries? Blood capillaries. Okay. Lipids. How much energy in a gram of lipids? 9 kilocalories. Right? What would be an example of a saturated fat? Animal fats? Yes. Very good. And unsaturated fats? Oils. What? Okay. What is the role of cholesterol? Correct. It gives origin to steroid hormones. For example,
Estrogen.
aldosterone, testosterone, progesterone, sex hormones. Okay. Cholesterol is also part of the cell membrane of all cells in the body. Okay. What is the function of lipids? So why would be lipids important? Right, to form membranes. What else? What else do we need lipids? Energy, right? Energy, very good, right? It's a precursor of eicosanoid. Do you guys remember what is an eicosanoid? One of them is prostaglandin. Do you guys remember what is the function of prostaglandins? Why do we take aspirin or ibuprofen? To get rid of eicosanoids. Why? Eicosanoids cause pain, right? So that's the bad side of lipids, right? They can cause, they are precursors of eicosanoids that can cause pain. Fat should be less than what percentage of your diet?
30.
Less than 30%. Right? It should be less than 30%. Okay. Functions of lipids, as we said, digestion of lipids begins in the stomach. Enzymes that are involved in digestion. So there is a lingual lipase in the mouth, but it only gets activated in the stomach. Right? So that's where the digestion of lipids will begin. The pancreas, as we know, can digest pretty much all types of nutrients. So we have pancreatic lipase important for digestion of lipids, and the bile needs to be emulsified. Helps to emulsify the fats. Okay, absorption of lipids. So in the small intestine, lipids need to be packaged into small droplets that are called micelles. Micelles are the ones that will be transferred into the cells of the small intestine, and then they will become chylomicrons that will be triglycerides, and those will pass into lactose. In other words, before it gets absorbed, it's called a micelle. And after it gets absorbed, it's called a chylomicron. And the chylomicron is the one that passes to the lactose. Okay? Any questions? Alright, we're gonna take a break in a minute. Okay, so lipoproteins consist of triglycerides and what else? If it's called lipoprotein,
Protein.
proteins outside and cholesterol right inside. What type of lipoproteins do you guys know?
The one on the cell membrane?
HDL would be one of them. LDL and VLDL. Which one is the good cholesterol?
HDL.
Good. Okay. So we have VLDL, which is not the best one, right? It's what we call the bad cholesterol. Why is it bad? Why is it that VLDL is bad?
Clogs.
Lipoproteins on the cell membrane.
So I want you guys to think of lipoproteins as shuttles. So VLDL is a shuttle that takes cholesterol and lipids from the liver to peripheral tissues. The problem is that some of that cholesterol can be deposited in the lining of my blood vessels. That's why it's bad. Okay? It delivers, it's kind of like a delivery, it's like the Amazon truck. It delivers stuff to other parts of the body. But it delivers cholesterol that can get deposited in the blood vessels. So that's why VLDL and LDL are not great, right? LDL, same thing, they transport lipids to body cells. HDL, on the other hand, is called the good cholesterol. Why? It's kind of like the garbage truck that takes lipids from my blood vessels, lipid in, takes them to the liver, and the liver gets rid of it. Okay, that's why it's good. It helps us to remove cholesterol and inflammatory materials because it takes it to the liver and the liver eliminates those in body. Does this make sense? Okay? Alright. So in other words, VLDL and DL are shuttles from the liver to peripheral tissues. HDL is the opposite, from peripheral tissues to the liver. Okay? Alright. Most of the body's cholesterol is it produced by our body or is it something that we obtain in the diet? It's actually produced by our body. It's endogenous. Okay? So we produce our own cholesterol. Okay? It's not something that we obtain in the diet. Okay? So it is important to maintain cholesterol at less than 200 milligrams per deciliter. Okay. All right, let's take a 5-minute break, and then we will talk.